Okay. Let's start. Good morning, everyone. Let me give everybody a chance to get into the room. And then we'll get started. Thanks for joining us this morning. We're excited about this session and hope you get some good information to move forward. We're still streaming in. I want to make sure everybody can get on before I get started. This session is on addressing the new physical education and health TEKs. It's part of our fall lineup to better inform our members on topics and to provide information that can help our school health advisory councils be more aware and more supportive of their school districts. We are limited in what we can share as far as specific policy interpretation right now, but we have some great guests who are going to share what they're doing and how they're approaching the new TEKs. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm Michele Smith. I'm the Texas State Coordinator for Action for Healthy Kids. And as I mentioned, this is going to focus on our guidelines, but this is for Texas. A lot of times we'll have individuals from other states who join us. Just so you know, these are basically formatted to help our districts comply with the guidelines that are a part of Texas state statute. So a little bit about Action for Healthy Kids. We're about to celebrate our 20th anniversary of working around obesity prevention through schools. We started focusing on nutrition and physical activity, but over the years have expanded our scope and embraced the whole child model. So we bring a lot of things to the table around nutrition, physical activity, but also mental health and other aspects of the whole child. Oops, and I think I have got the wrong PowerPoint up. I'm going to have to. We had a couple of different presentations this week and I got the wrong one up. That's pretty funny. No wonder it said the wrong thing on the title. Okay, logistics. Are you seeing my screen? Did I share my screen? Yes. Just want to make sure.
Not yet, Michele.
No, okay. It's still on the wrong PowerPoint. Oh my goodness. It won't let me get off. There we go. Technology is great when you know how to use it, right? There we go. Is it there now? No. Okay.
So as we're waiting on Michele, I'll give everybody something to think about. So why did the tofu cross the road? Anybody know why the tofu crossed the road? The Provy wasn't chicken.
Okay, I think we're there now, right? So logistically speaking, you can listen with your computers or you can call in on the telephone if you have a bad connection. You are all muted. You can please share in the chat where you're from if you like. And if you have questions, put them into the question box and we will get to those as we go forward. And this webinar is being recorded. We will provide a link after the fact, along with any resources that we talk about on the webinar. So I'm going to get started and turn this over to Rose Haggerty. She's our wonderful physical education expert and was part of the process in developing the new TEKs. And she's going to facilitate this session and introduce the rest of the panel. So Rose, take it away.
Good morning to everyone, and thank you for joining us. This is an exciting session. The way that we have it set up, our focus is going to be primarily to have an in-depth, as much in-depth discussion on the new TEKs and what do we do with them? How do we prepare for that year of implementation, which will be in August 2022, that beginning of that school year. What are districts doing to implement and to incorporate the new TEKs into their curriculum development process, into their professional development or training? And then how does that all fall into instructional delivery? So there are three big aspects in regard to incorporating our new TEKs into our programs. What does that look like for some districts? Some of our districts are very fortunate to have district leaders that are responsible for health and physical education. And then in other cases, we do have some smaller districts that don't have that opportunity for a lead person. And we want to be able to provide support and some suggested strategies that's going to be good for all. So I am so excited that we have a panel of experts that are going to help us with this discussion. We have Francina Hollingsworth, who is from Houston ISD, and she is our health and physical education curriculum specialist. Michele Resnick, who is the Assistant Director of Health and Physical Education in Austin ISD. And then we have Helen Wagner, who is a Coordinator of Physical Education and Wellness in Humble ISD. So ladies, I look forward to our discussion. And then again, I want to remind everyone, if you have any questions, if you have any added suggestions, feel free to drop those in the chat box so that everyone is able to see that. And the bottom line is that we are all here to share and help and support one another, because everyone is having to go through this process. Many school districts may have already started. Some may not have. So I want to get started with Michele Resnick, who is going to lead us off. And we're going to talk about how districts are actually incorporating the new TEKs into curriculum development. Many of you already have your curriculum already developed. So what do you do now? We have new TEKs. And thinking in terms of, it's been 20 plus years since we've had our TEKs. And so this is going to be a new process for some and an exciting process. But the bottom line is, how do we provide the best that we can for our students and also create that platform so that our teachers can provide the best instructional delivery that they can for our kids? Prior to Michele starting, I do want to acknowledge there may be some of you in the audience who were a part of that process with the new TEKs and also with the adoption process with the textbook. And I want to say to all of you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Your work has been very beneficial for our students. And again, the bottom line is, it's all about what we can do to support our students in the state of Texas. So Michele Resnick, if you would like to start us off, and let's talk about the curriculum development piece and the new TEKs. What does that look like for Austin ISD? What kind of strategies have you used?
All right, thanks, Rose. I appreciate it. I'm so glad that you mentioned how long ago it was that we had our TEKs reviewed, because I know I was probably in my 20s, I think. Is that about somewhere around there, right? So hi, everyone. Michele Rusnak from Austin ISD. I'm really happy to be here and to support and help any way I can. So, you know, one of the things that I always lead with when we talk about our TEKs is how important they are, and what a wonderful job you writers did that are on this call. I know Pat Warner, she's one of my curriculum specialists. She was part of that as well. So I was very, very pleased for the whole process and the whole review and everything. And I think we came up with a really solid TEKs that we can move forward with. So now what, right? So one of the things that I always like to say is, you got to teach with a purpose. You got to know your TEKs inside and out, and you got to be able to align it with your curriculum. So one of the first things that I'm going to share with you, and I'm going to share my screen here, is what we did. And Rose, can you give me a thumbs up to let me know that you can see that? All right. So this is the copy of the 3rd grade TEKs. It was, I'm not even sure where we got this, but it was one of them. And then what we ended up doing, can you ask them to be quiet or calm down a little? So, sorry, y'all, we're in a Google type atmosphere, open atmosphere around here, so it gets really loud. So what we did is we went through all the TEKs, and you'll see all of these different colors. So you'll see green, yellow, and there's going to be some blue. And we prioritized the TEKs to make sure which ones were going to be our high leverage TEKs, the ones that we were really going to focus on, and then the complementary TEKs. So the green are the high leverage, the complementary are the green, and then the reoccurring TEKs were the blue. So that was one of our first steps, is to go through and go, what is it that we really want our kids to know? Now, we have already had an established curriculum. So what our next step was, so I'm going to go back in here, is we developed something called our YPG, which is our yearly planning guide. And if you remember me saying complementary or high level, complementary, and reoccurring, we gave kind of a definition of what that looks like. And this is a 3rd grade yearly planning guide. And yes, we went ahead and started aligning with the new TEKs just because, like I said, Pat was on the committee, so we had them and we were ready to go. This just gets everybody into the different 9 weeks, and I'll get into that later on. But our reoccurring TEKs that you saw were right here. So we kind of outlined all of those, and those are the ones that the teachers are going to constantly push and remind students. This gets us into all of our instructional links throughout the school year. And then we have our essential questions. But what I wanted to show you is at least one unit. Let me get into throwing and catching, because that's the one that I'm going to share with you. Is here's those, like I said, we took all those high level leverage TEKs and put them here. There wasn't complementary ones here, but then we got into our instructional resources. So that was one of the first things that we did is, okay, let's take the new ones, let's put them on here, and let's align it with something that we already have, which is our curriculum. So I'm trying to think, I think the next thing to show y'all would be what our curriculum writers did then, as they just kind of had a high level vision of how to break down all of these various TEKs and what were going to be our activities and whatnot. And then what we get into is really outlining what we want our teachers to learn. So the same format goes through every unit, and it takes them to all of our website or our curriculum folders or back to the yearly plan. And we just kind of, what is, the big ideas of this unit? How are we going to grade? And so we really take all of those TEKs and kind of give our teachers that look. So what does that look like? And I'm going to show you a few examples because I think it's really important, especially now in our world where we have to develop curriculum for a digital lens and face-to-face. So one of the things we ended up doing is taking all of our curriculum and moving it from PowerPoints over into Google Docs. Everything is now Google, Google, Google. And we do that because we are a Canvas campus or district. We use Canvas, and we call it blended learning. And our blended learning is a combination of digital resources and our face-to-face teaching. So we wanted teachers to be able to project anything on the wall. We wanted them to be able to take any of our content and break it apart or keep it whole, and then be able to drop it into our Canvas learning management system. And when I say we drop it into Canvas, I'm sure everybody knows this, but we are ready. If we have to go back to just virtual learning, we have all the resources ready. And if we get to do face-to-face, that's great. But we know now that experience of kids being able to use the technology and to have that in the gym too just takes our education at a different level. And, you know, we have kids using their devices and filming. You know, I'll hand it over to Rose and Rose will film me. And now I get to look at my own self throwing a ball and I can analyze myself. I can go out, I can do research on whatever I want. So it's very exciting to see what all we can do. But we spent a lot of time taking those TEKs and dropping them down. We've learned a lot about looping and creating different things. So teachers can just put this up on project it up on their wall, or like I said, it would be in the blend course as well. So students and parents can see and have access to all of this. So we spent a lot of time, and like I said, this is a whole unit here. So teachers can get all the curriculum this way, or they can also go back and they would have just different components of it. So what I've done here is just, I have a few samplings that I'll be happy to share with everybody. And then my last part.
Michele, I'm sorry. Are you still supposed to be sharing your screen?
I was.
Okay.
Thank
Yes,
you.
You're not sharing. Someone noted it in the chat.
I appreciate y'all saying that. Thanks. Let's see. How's that? Now you can see it.
Yes, it's up now.
Were you able to see the YPGs?
No.
Okay, I'll go back to that. So this is what we were talking about, creating everything in Google Slides, in Google Docs. So this would be a whole unit right here just on cardiovascular endurance. So this is what a teacher could utilize as a whole, or she could, or he could take apart all of these different slides. So let me go back. My apologies, y'all. Get this thing out of the way. Can't move it. Here we go. And I'm going to go back to the YPG because I think that's really, really important for y'all to see. That's part of the planning. I'm so glad somebody said that. All right. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So this is our yearly planning guide, and this format is the same in all different grade levels. This is the third grade one that I was talking about. And remember me telling you about the high leverage in yellow and the high leverage in green, the complementary was in yellow and the reoccurring was in blue. And so this is what it looks like, breaking it down even farther. So these were all the blue TEKs because these were all the reoccurring ones. These are just different links to get into our folders for content, but taking those green, those green TEKs are right here under high leverage, under the appropriate topic over here. The complementary TEKs are over here. And then these are just the instructional resources. So you saw those, the green, yellow, and blue, and how they're all kind of organized on this one document. And so this is our cooperation unit, same thing. Here's all our high leverage TEKs, our complementary TEKs, and then those reoccurring ones were the ones at the beginning of our YPG.
Michele, there was another question in the chat box in regard to your curriculum, and it was like, what curriculum do you use?
Our curriculum that we use is self-made. I'm gonna stop sharing here. I have the pleasure of working with Pat Warner, who's an amazing curriculum specialist. And I was actually able to hire another person using Title IV funds this year. And so we have created everything ourselves. And what started all of that was the blended learning, knowing that we had to go virtual and what can we do? And so taking those TEKs and making them go alive on a Google deck with some fun emojis and some videos and some other things just to keep kids interested.
Right. Right.
So Rose, you got another question for me, or
I
can
think that,
is that it?
was good. Yeah, that's the only one specifically for you in regard to that.
Okay.
And if you are done, we can
Yeah.
ask Helen and Francina to share in regard to curriculum development, you know, what they're doing in their district and some of the strategies that they've used.
Hello, I'm Helen Wagner, Humble ISD Health and PE Coordinator. Nice to see some very familiar faces and folks that I've been fortunate enough to work with and follow and just be part of the group over the years. So thanks again for the invitation. I am going to ask, we're having some technical difficulties out here. We're having a little weather is rolling through the Houston area. And so HC and I have, he graciously we're at his outdoor learning center. And we have jumped across the bridge, so to speak, and we are presenting from here. So I'm going to ask if Michele Smith could pull up my my slides that I submitted to her yesterday. She was going to put this in the chat, but if she can share a screen, that would be much appreciated, and I will talk us through that.
Right. And Francina, is there anything that you would like to share in regard to curriculum development that Houston ISD may be doing a little bit differently or doing some of the same strategies?
Well, we're kind of doing the same thing that Michele mentioned. We're creating our own curriculum and also developing lessons for our virtual learners that are out because of COVID. And so they could keep up with their teacher at home with our LMS platform. So we're doing similar things as well, looking at the TEKs, looking at how we can create lessons for teachers and students to enhance their learning with health and physical education.
Right. Thank you. Okay, Helen, we're now ready to get started and take a look at the new TEKs. What happens with professional development? What do we do there? So Helen's going to get us started there and with that discussion on professional development, teacher training opportunities.
Okay, so before we begin training, obviously we have to know where and how to access information. And so I think that's very important in this document, and you all will have access to this as well. If you go to, and I'm going to ask Michele to go ahead and click on the first Texas Administrative Code Chapter 116, and we're going to open that up. There we go. So the link is attached, and you all will all have this. It's going to go straight to, I think if you can exit out of that, and there we go. So this takes us to the page where you will be able to find the information. If you'll scroll down. What else is that? All right, to that main section where the pointer is at right now, that's the TEKs for health on the top, and then the TEKs for physical education on the bottom. What you will find is if you click on the top link, and we'll take health first, that's fine. And you begin to scroll down. It's a lot of background information. It is not what I would call the cleanest of copy. I'm going to show you a quick link to get to what I would consider the cleanest of copy. But what this does is this gives you all the background and knowledge of how was verbiage changed, what words were actually changed from the way it was proposed, and then the way that it ended up. So if you go down to right underneath that, the very first word says subchapter A, since published proposed, and click on it. Now, if you'll scroll down, and you'll begin to see those are the cleanest. This is the cleanest copy. This is as clean as TEA is going to get with us. But you will see words in red. Those are the words that have been added or changed. There's also going to be red lines where it is deleted, and you'll see that. This is what was taken out of the TEKs. So it is as clean as you can get. To me, if you click onto the subchapters, you're going to get to the quick of what the actual TEKs look like now. Okay. And then we have the very same thing for physical education. So if you want the background knowledge, I'm going to tell you, go ahead. And this is what a lot of people have done accidentally, is they clicked on that first link and they don't know to go down to the subchapters. If you go down to the subchapters, it's going to give you a very clean, and as clean as it's going to get copied with TEA. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about that piece? Because I know when you first look at it, it's a lot. Okay.
Helen, if I could add, if you don't mind, when you talked about that first document that goes through the whole process, and for those of you that were not familiar with the process or interested in, well, how did we get here? What do we do in order to make those changes or find it necessary to make those changes? I just think reviewing the whole process is really helpful, and it brings a clear picture of what TEA did, what our other colleagues did to help with the revision of those TEKs. And so I do think that's an important piece.
Yes. And then if you go ahead and scroll on down to my next big bullet, and that's the action plan for training. Many of us come from different districts we go from large district to small to outliers. And so when I came up with a plan of what it could look like, no matter what district or how many people you're looking at, I think there would be 3 phases that you need to keep in mind. You're looking at that pre-implementation phase, which that's where you begin to communicate and create awareness at the district and campus level. You're not in a silo, you're not on your own. Many people have heard about this adoption that's forthcoming, and you need to make sure that they understand the process as well. Then you're going to come up with an implementation plan of action where you begin to pull your folks together. First, like I said, at the district level, then you're going to look at the campus levels. I love to rely upon your leaders on those campuses. They're the ones that are going to take charge. And when you look at that beautiful curriculum with Austin, I'm sure they had a lot of great and valuable input from leaders and all their physical educators. So the more people that you can put into this process, the more they're going to feel ownership. I will definitely let you know that. And then the most important piece to me is that multi-year ongoing support. What's going to ensure implementation fidelity, and how are you going to make adjustments? How are you going to make those tweaks along the way? The next thing I wanted to bring up with y'all and let you know is that in the past we did have a TEKs guide, and they were valuable and very useful. TEA at this time, they do have a long-term vision to produce that TEKs guide for us, but they're currently prioritizing those foundation subjects, and we really have not been given an ETA for when the ones for physical education will be developed. But I know that all of us will keep an eye for an update and in touch with our folks at TEA. Just to let you all know that I was able to confer with Barney yesterday and with Jessica. So I know that my information I'm giving to you today is the most updated, current, recent, and accurate information that we have coming from TEA. I wanted to also go into letting you all take a look at, that we're going to have the 3 new courses for high school physical education class. And what I did is I wrote up this is a pure draft, but it's something for you to work off of if you so choose. There'll be a 1 credit course. And what I did is I basically copy and pasted right straight out of the TEKs and the new things that have been written. So you can add to, but not obviously take out, because this is what we are covering in those TEKs. And this is, I love, and if y'all look at that, the lifetime fitness and wellness pursuits, we're beginning to really move into wellness concepts. It's no longer going to look like foundations and team and individual sports. We are really branching into the world of wellness. And I think that was a big push, and we listened to everyone that was in our work groups and beyond that, and came up with a document that we feel so much better about in moving our kids in a forward wellness direction. And I think at the very bottom, so those are the 3 courses. Okay, so I wanted to include this. TEA gave this information to me yesterday as well. So for the new courses, there will be a new service IDs. And those new service IDs and PINS numbers for 22-23 will be available December 1st in the TSDS data standards. And I've given you the link to find that. And after December 1st, you'll need to select the 2022-2023 school year from the drop-down menu. And so hopefully that will serve as some helpful information. I know most of us are being asked, let's start looking at our course guides for next school year. So this could get us moving also in the right direction. And one last thing that I wanted to add is that as far as professional development goes for TEKs and TEKs training, TEA is they wanted to provide professional development if funds were allocated by the Texas legislature. But I hate to be the bearer of unfortunate news on this one. No funds were allocated for the new TEKs for this biennium. So that's the latest information I received from TEA on the actual professional development for TEKs and moving forward.
Thank you, Helen, for that. And I do want to take a look at our other panelists. If there's anything about training that you may be doing a little bit differently, any other strategies, I'd like to open that up for you to share that at this time.
Also, Rose, I did put the document into chat, so you can pull it out of chat if you like. We will include it in a follow-up email with a link to the webinar and any other resources.
Great. Thank you, Michele.
Rose, I would like to just give a little background about the TEKs and then the material and resources review. So I was fortunate enough to be selected to serve on work group C and D for the health TEKs, and was selected to take part in the materials review for some of the health materials. And with the TEKs, we had a wide range of professionals. We had educators, we had health professionals and parents serving on those work reviews. And we had in-depth conversations about each TEK as we went along. And we had some groups that just focused on elementary, some groups that focused on secondary, and then we had some groups that were blended all together and went step by step looking at, okay, in the educational realm of things, how does this look? In the professional world, how does this look? What is needed? And our health professionals actually asked the educators, okay, is this feasible to teach? You know, how would this come across in a classroom? And then as educators, we let the health professionals know, okay, our views, how we can implement things. So we had great dialogue amongst each other. And then on the materials review, I got a chance to serve with some excellent or outstanding educators and parents, where we went through and looked at some of the materials that textbook companies were submitted for state review. And, you know, our parents were really vocal about, you know, seeing things like, okay, why isn't this in here? Why is it worded like this? And as educators, we got a chance to dialogue with parents to let them know, okay, it might be worded like this because of, you know, certain things that are happening or not allowed to happen in education. So it was great. So, you know, we got a chance to really work together and make a difference and truly update the materials that are needed moving forward. It was a lot of work though.
Francina, thank you, because that gives another light too in terms of what that whole process was when you were there and actively engaged in it. And there was a lot of healthy discussion. And the one really nice thing is that many of us that were in that were educators who have been on the ground floor, in the classrooms and everything. And so I really believe that opinions and recommendations were really taken. And so I feel that we do have a good document, and just taking a look at it and moving forward. And, like you said, after, 20 years, it's got to be better. So that's where we're going. But thank you for that. Anyone else want to share anything about teacher training in regard to incorporating the TEKs in that? And I know when we look at it, there is an overlap in curriculum development, training, and instructional delivery. Michele, Resnick.
I was just going to say, one of the things that has worked for our district, and remember, I've been in my district forever, but we started a mentor program for those first-year teachers and second-year teachers. They stay with me for 2 years to make sure that they really truly understand how the curriculum was developed, taking those deep dives, putting it side by side with their evaluation and how it all kind of works together. So I would recommend a mentor program that you could do. And then the other part of that is to have various cohorts. We meet regularly. I know Zoom is a nasty word now, it seems like, but in a town or a city the size of Austin, it's really saved us a lot. And being able to have people come together on a regular basis. And then we've also extended that to what we call the PE3 cohort. And it's just anybody that's at that advanced level that really wants to, the rule is, you can take, but you got to put in. And so they have this other cohort of just master teachers. And those are the group, that's the group that when Helen was saying, who do you go to? How do you get those ideas? That group right there is our number one group that we typically use. But establishing some kind of system where there's communication all the time is something that I would definitely recommend. And so when there's changes like what's coming down, it's going to be a lot easier to get that information out and support teachers.
Great, thank you. As we move into our next area, which is instructional delivery, I'm going to ask Francina if you would lead us in that discussion and share some strategies that you're using there in Houston ISD. And I will ask the other panelists to share if there are things that we need to add. Thank you.
You're welcome. So we have developed a year at a glance for health and physical education, where we're looking at the national standards and the new TEKs, where we're trying to create or align the topics for the whole entire year. So we're kind of pre-planning. So, we looked at the old TEKs and we looked at the topic standards that are coming out for the new TEKs, and just kind of went through our calendar for the year and plugged in where we thought our topics for the year would work. What are some of the topics that are needed for our students, and what are some of the topics that our kids love? So we plugged all of that in. And we're also creating we have a curriculum analyst team where we're using HECAT and PCAT tools to aid with assessing the needs of our curriculum. So, going in and analyzing our current curriculum and plugging in what topics should be covered in elementary, middle school, and high school. And some of that is, just vertical alignment and making sure that we are covering everything at the appropriate levels. We're in discussion with providing professional development to explain and review the new TEKs and aiding in we want to facilitate a conversation with our teachers about the TEK verbs and making sure that they know what those verbs mean and how their lessons reflect the verb that goes along with the TEK. And planning with mastery in mind. So making sure that teachers are focused on the outcomes and the skill development and working backwards. So this is the outcome that I want the kids to have at the end of the lesson, but how do I get there? So going through those steps to make sure that their kids are mastering the skills and the outcomes. And lastly, we are also in the process of creating a curriculum team for elementary, middle school, and high school teachers that will help assist us in writing and reviewing curriculum, designing and facilitating PDs that center around delivering instructional strategies.
Hey, thank you, Francina.
Yeah.
And from the other panelists, is there anything that we'd like to add to the instructional piece?
This kind of is broad for everything, Rose. I'm just thinking about some of the smaller districts out there that don't have a person like Helen or Francina or myself.
And that was going to be my next question to you also. Okay.
There we go.
Yeah, so
You
go
can-
ahead.
You can pay me later. You know, one of the things that my suggestion would be, number one, reach out to your biggest urban district that is around you. That would be it. And, you know, we're all here, like Rose said, and Michele said, we're all here to help out a lot. I know Tayford has developed some things in the past with the old TEKs. So using their matrix and scope and sequence and bundling, that could be a great example. But one of the things I think I personally would have done is reached out to any university or college that is nearby, because if they're creating physical educators or even educators, this is kind of like that 101 type stuff that they have to go through as they're learning how to develop or learning about curriculum and even developing curriculum and writing lessons. So maybe partnering up with them and saying, hey, can we work together as a project? Your kids get to do this, I get the outcome of it. So that would be one suggestion.
Great, thank you.
Also to piggyback on that, Michele, a bit, also the community colleges that are within your areas. They're great feeders and they're running programs as well with student teaching programs that I think could prove a worth and value to partner with them as well.
Great, thank you.
They don't have to be physical educators. Curriculum is curriculum.
Right, thank you, ladies.
Maybe one last thing is don't get overwhelmed. You know, just this work, big or small district, can be overwhelming. So, you know, take a deep breath and baby steps. It doesn't all have to be done at one time by the end of the school year. So, you know, and like both ladies said, Michele and Helen, you know, partner up. There's nothing wrong with collaborating. You know, if a school district that you know of is having PDs, ask if you could come in and sit on these, you know, PDs. So, you know, a lot of times we're like, yeah, sure, here's the link, join us. Because we are a friendly and family-oriented community. So we're always helping each other out. So feel free to email, to call if you want to reach out to us or other school districts.
Thank you. And I noticed in the chat, oh, Helen, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that with Francina, what she said. You know, it's never too late to plan ahead for summer PD and getting those thoughts in mind. You can do a lot of that pre-implementation work throughout the school year, and then really where the rubber meets the road comes summertime, and inviting, like you said, with these larger districts, inviting some of those outlying districts that are smaller to be part of the process with you. We're all in this together. And I so agree. It looks like the mountain right now, but if we just take those baby steps and work together, I believe that is our charge through TAPER. Together we're stronger. And I really do believe in that and working together with everyone.
Great. Thank you, Helen. And that's absolutely true. I want to point out one of the messages that was put in chat, and we talked about how we're all in this together. Lori Carroll, thank you so much. She has shared a link of a document that she's working on and is asking for, like any input, because I know when I see the words, if you see any error, let her know. But click on that link, and y'all, that's what we're all about. We're all about sharing and helping to make things within our profession better for not only our teachers, but also our students as well. So as we start moving forward, I know that we have just a few more. Is that somebody's? Oh, you've already, Michele, you clicked on it?
Yeah, that's the link from Lori, just so y'all know
that's
what
Lori.
she's sharing,
Okay,
which is pretty comprehensive. That's exciting.
it is. Yes, yeah.
Okay, just wanted y'all
Thank
to know.
you, Lori. Thank you again for that. And so I'm sure that's going to be a nice resource added to all of our work. So thanks again for that. As we move forward, and I know we haven't really mentioned anything about the School Health Advisory Council. And so I do have one question in regard to that, and I'm going to leave this as probably our closing question here, is that if your SHAC is involved in the planning and or implementation of the TEKs, are they involved in that? Do you share with your SHAC your progress in curriculum development? And if so, what level of involvement does your SHAC have? So I'm going to start with you, Michele. You have about a couple of minutes to respond.
Our SHAC is very involved here in Austin, Texas. I think, yes, we have a regular update that I just say, this is what we're doing, blah, 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 blah. And of course, anything that deals with human sexuality or now sex trafficking and dating violence and blah, blah, blah for Senate Bill 9 all has to go through the SHAC. So we've already got our resolution passed by the board. So we're going to start having all those meetings and additional meetings probably, which also includes the textbook, because some of our textbooks have human sexuality content in it. So everybody's got to be on the same page for sure for that. I'll let the others speak.
Okay, anyone else want to share? Because I know with the health, that's a really critical thing for the SHAC to look at, but do they also take a look at your physical education pieces and that type of thing? Helen?
Yes, and really this was in our very first meeting. This was, to me, one of the most exciting things to be able to kick off to them this year with a charge of, you're really going to have a voice and involvement with our new TEKs, with our materials adoption. And I just really think that putting this, and we also have student representation on our SHAC. So even those high school students are going to get a chance before it becomes, all the way public and knowing what those things are. They're going to get an opportunity to see some differences in some courses that are going to be offered. And in our district, I want to call that growth. And what is that mindset? How are we going to change that, which I know can be effectively done through a school health advisory council. But this year, to me, is the perfect opportunity to be able to bring it all together with the TEKs and the materials adoptions all at one time. And there's not a better place than to do that with your school health advisory councils.
Right. Okay, Francina.
Yes, and our SHAC is very involved as well. We have a SHAC advisory or review committee that helps review and vet all of our community and district resources. So they will also be helping with the planning and vetting process of our adoption period for the for proclamation 2021 or 22. Sorry, don't want to move us back. And we're also in the process of establishing our textbook review committee, and our curriculum director and our textbook manager has laid out a tentative schedule already for us. So many of our SHAC stakeholders will be members of that committee as well.
Great, thank you. And all three of you have kind of mentioned the textbook adoption coming up. Okay, we've had what, 20 years, you know, with the same TEKs and basically the same textbooks that have been approved. We have some folks who have never gone through a textbook adoption. What kind of parting advice would you give to those individuals? And let's start with Helen.
I'm one of them. I'm going to say that I've not been through this process, especially not in an administrative level. My very first steps was to make sure to secure the people that I know go through this in our district, our instructional materials specialists. So I've reached out to those folks. They're extremely helpful, and they do have protocol and procedure to follow. And I want to make sure that I'm following what it is that my district, because I've already been in touch with folks from other districts, because I know we're all reaching out to each other. It's the first time for many. And we're kind of stepping off on some different directions. And so I'm going to encourage you to please check with your district folks that are in charge of instructional materials so that they can lead you through. And I'm very blessed and humble. They're guiding me through this process. And then I'm gathering knowledge. And then they're telling me this is how we work through this process. This is not their first rodeo. They just finished with relay on that one. So that's how I'm doing it in humble. I'm just going to encourage everybody, reach out to your district level folks first, and then they'll help move you through that process.
Right, Francina.
Kind of what Helen mentioned, our district level personnel is helping guide us through this process. So because they deal with this all the time with other content areas. So they're kind of letting us know what the layout is and the guidelines and the kind of like the benchmarks for each step of the way.
Right.
And so one of the things we're planning to look at the state approved, but our district also has a process where if outside vendors that are not state approved, if they want to submit an application, they can. However, they have to be, they have to have 100% aligned with the TEKs. They have to be a district vendor already, and they have to be vetted. So they have to have criteria to meet our district standards if they're not state approved.
Thank you. Okay, and Michele.
Retire. I'm just playing. I'm just playing. It's been I went through this, I think it was what, 14, 15 years ago, I think, and the rules have changed. So it doesn't matter if you've gone through it or not. So don't feel like I have any more experience than anybody else. Same thing with these ladies are saying. The one caveat that I'm going to ask, and maybe even Michele can speak about it since she's such a SHAC knowledge person, is there is human sexuality content in these books. So that means there's going to be just a little extra rules about going through certain things. So my next thing would be get your lawyers, get your chief academic people involved, because it's not just a typical textbook adoption, and make sure that you're not only following the textbook adoption process, but that you're following all the new legislation that is that has been just brought up just over the summer.
Thank you. And then for those that don't have those district lead persons or those district coordinators, and you are a health and physical education teacher out there in the field, but interested in being a part of that, I would seek to find out who your contact person would be and let them know that you would like to be a part of that adoption process, because there needs to be someone there that does have that content background in order to help with that process. So lots of things that are going on for health and physical education. This is a great opportunity. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate our panelists today. Thank you all for sharing your expertise and your knowledge. And one thing that I can always say about health and physical education, folks, we don't mind sharing what we have. It's almost like what's mine is yours. So again, thank you. And Michele Smith, I'm going to turn this back over to you, and thank you for allowing us to be a part of this.
Thank you all for some wonderful insights and expertise. I'm hoping that all the people that attended this webinar feel confident that you can call on any one of these ladies. And their email addresses will be included in my follow-up email so that you can reach out to them. Michele Resnick is absolutely correct. You really need to get your SHACs involved early because there are a lot of new guidelines on how SHACs are supposed to review sexuality education. We don't have clear interpretation on those guidelines from TASB. We don't have it from TEA. So we have been reluctant to try to do a webinar on this. We had one scheduled for November, but we don't really feel that we're qualified because I can't sit there and say, this is how you should approach this. So we're probably going to wait until after the first of the year. And TASB has said they'll have supplied all the districts with their policy updates and will feel more qualified, and hoping by then maybe TEA will come out with some information. So in the meantime, we'll let you know when and if we do get good information. What you're seeing on the screen right now is a letter we did last year that SHACs can use, or other interested group people in your district that want to support physical education, particularly now when academics is so important and taking front and center. We don't want to lose traction with physical education or physical activity. So we want everyone to share and consider sending a letter of support to your school board or to your school administrator. So this is just something that you can use moving forward. We've got some other resources that'll be part of the PDF that we'll send along with the link to the recording. This is a thank you and a recognition to our SHAC work group. We have 5 of our districts plus quite a few of our partners that are meeting quarterly to find ways to help support your school health advisory councils so they can support you as physical educators. So we're working on a school health advisory council network, and we're hoping that those of you that are on here today will join that network. We want to build it. Right now we have about 100 individuals. We want to see that in the hundreds so that we can have a voice at the next legislative session and make sure that things don't get out of hand and we don't have even more, what's the word I'm looking for, guidelines from the legislature on how SHAC should work or how things should happen that are really hindering the work that you guys can do. So thank you very much for joining us today. I think we took a couple of minutes over. You guys did a great job of staying on track and keeping us within our time limits, and look for more information from Action for Healthy Kids around future webinars and additional information. And thank you, Alice, for joining us. She is our volunteer chair. She's with AgriLife. I didn't recognize her up front. So thank you all and have a great rest of the week. And Rose, we appreciate you so much for facilitating this group.
No problem. It's my joy.
With that, we will,
Thank
excuse me, we will call it an end.
Thank you, Rose. Thank you,
Thank
panelists.
you.
Bye.